Hey everyone, Brian here with another Java game programming tutorial. So the last time we left off, we implemented our projectile class and we have these awesome, cool looking bullets coming out at super slow motion. And I think what we're going to do this time is we're going to create a new method in our artist class to allow us to rotate textures, such as this gun, so we can kind of follow these enemies. We won't get it tracking the enemies this time, but we'll allow the framework for it to rotate. And then we're going to completely recreate this whole boot class. You can see it's kind of like a hodgepodge of random stuff, like as we made it. Like when we made the tile grid class, we're like, oh, we'll just put it right here. Then we made the enemy class, we're like, oh, we'll put it right here. So we're going to clean up the boot class and put that stuff where it belongs and get a good framework going for the future. First off, I want to say thank you for everyone that checked out the Patreon. And I just want to put a little reminder here. You can click the link on the screen to check it out and support this content. Every dollar helps a lot. So, yeah. So, what we're going to do first is we're going to go to the... I guess we'll go to the artist class. And we'll do the new method first. So, let's just copy and paste this entire draw quad text method. And we have an error because it's named the same thing, so put ROT, that way it's draw quad text rotate, at least in my mind. You might want to name it something more specific, but I'll remember that it's rotate. We're taking a texture, X, Y, width, and height, but we also want an angle to rotate it at. And now what we're going to do is, you see here we're translating, we're going to... Here, I actually have paint open, so I'll show you guys. So, say we have our tile here, right? What we're doing currently is we have our X and our Y set to the top left corner of the tile, and that's how we're drawing it. We're drawing it from the X all the way to the width, and then all the way down the height. And that's how we're getting our entire tile drawn. But we're going to change that because we want to rotate it. So if we were to leave it like it is and then just to rotate it, it would rotate around the top left corner, so the entire tile would look like, you know, pretty weird. It'd like spin around this corner instead of in the center. So what we need to do is we actually need to translate to the center of this, and translating is just kind of getting like a reference point in a way. So instead of translating just to the X and Y, we need to translate to the X plus half the width. That's not half. X plus half the width plus Y plus half the height. That drawing's throwing me off, I'm sorry. I wanted to get like half. It's really bugging me for some reason. So we're doing the X plus half the width and then Y plus half the height. And that'll give us the center of our tile. So that way when we rotate it, it'll rotate around its center. And then what we're going to do after we rotate it is we're actually going to translate it back to the top left because that's how we're drawing everything. So let's go ahead and go to our Eclipse project now, and where we translate it, we're just going to do exactly what I said. Instead of x, y, we're going to do x plus width divided by 2, and y plus height divided by 2. And then we're going to rotate it, which is GL rotate F, because it takes a float. And we put in our angle, and then the last things don't really matter. 001 is for kind of 3D stuff. Or if we wanted to translate it within here, like it takes another X and Y and Z. And then we're going to translate it back after we rotate it. So GL translate F. And here's the thing. We already have, like when we originally translate it, we're going to X plus width divided by 2 and Y plus height divided by 2. So we just want to translate it back to the X and Y. So we're actually just going to do translate F minus width divided by 2 and minus height divided by 2. Oh, and then 0 for the Z. So if you can imagine, if we're getting it to the X and then plus this other stuff, we just want to get rid of this other stuff to get it back to where it originally was. And that should work. So let's go to our tower cannon class and test it out here. Right now in our draw method, we're just using the basic draw quad text for our cannon texture. We want to change that to draw quad text ROT. Is that imported? Oh yeah, we need an angle. So let's just say 45 just to try it out. And also, this is a lot of reused code. And I think I said in a previous episode that whenever you're reusing a lot of code, it means you're usually not doing something as efficiently as you could be. And that is true, so we might end up just taking out this method and just having everything use the rotate method with like an angle of 0 if it's not rotated. But I'm not sure exactly how we're going to end up doing that, but just be aware that, you know, this isn't super efficient right now. We're probably going to clean it up a bit. Anyway, so we used our rotate method for this draw call, and let's try it out. Cool, so our gun is rotated 45 degrees, which looks pretty sweet. And you can put in different numbers. You can see it rotates based on the center of the gun's mass, or width and height, I guess. And yeah, so what we're going to do eventually is we're obviously going to have it lock onto an enemy and kind of like rotate along with the enemy. But that is not for this episode. That's probably next time. But we are going to do something else here. Because in order for our tower cannon to lock onto enemies, we need to have like a reference to the enemies. But the way we have our game structured right now with this hierarchy, we like have everything kind of split down, where say like our enemy class is over here and our tower class is over here, so there's no way for the tower to get data about the enemies. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to reorganize that so that everything is like kind of in this one class right here, and then it kind of gives data to everything that it needs. So we're going to go to our boot class, and then we're going to make a new class over here in the data package. New class, I'm just going to call it game. And this is just going to be like our main game class, I guess. It's going to run all the stuff that makes our game work, and it's responsible for updating everything once we're inside the game. So you might be thinking, well, that's pretty much everything, right? Well, we might eventually have like, say like an editor class or like an options menu, you know? So this is like this is for when the player's in a game, you know? This is what is going to be handled in here. So let's make the constructor public game. And the update needs to be public because we're going to be calling it from the boot class. So public void update. And some variables. So what do we need in our game? We need a tile grid to play on. We need a player to play the game. And we're probably going to make something called a wave manager pretty soon to kind of like, you know, manage the waves, I guess. But right now we just have a wave class that like keeps spawning enemies on a timer. What we want to do is we want to have like a class that kind of interfaces with that and can stop the timing like when the wave ends, and then, you know, start a new wave and like count up and stuff. So we might make a new class for that, or we might do it right in this game class. I'm not sure yet, but for now, private wave, and then let's do temp variables down here. And so this is where we're going to put our stuff as we test it. So like right now in our boot class, it's kind of like disorganized because whenever we made a new class and wanted to test it out, we're just going to put it in here. This time we're going to try and get more organized. We're going to put all of the temporary stuff that we're going to later change. For instance, our tower cannon, which is just randomly created right here in the boot class. I mean, obviously it should be created by the player, like placing it, right? So that's a temporary variable, so we'll put that in our temp variables. So in our constructor, we're going to need to pass a double integer array called map, which is how we're going to get this giant map we've created. And eventually we are going to load and save maps from files, so we won't need to do that, but for now we're going to pass it in. And we're going to say grid equals new tile grid. Oops. With the map we just passed. Player equals new player, and I think that I believe that takes a tile grid. Yep. And then wave equals new wave, which I believe also takes the tile grid. What is the it takes 20. Is 20 the spawn time? Or is it the amount of enemy? Yeah, spawn time. So it takes a spawn time and an enemy type for right now. So let's give it a spawn time of 20 again, I guess. And then it takes an enemy type. So let's just copy and paste this thing where we make our enemy, new enemy equals blah, 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 blah. Put that in there. And then semicolon. All right, so we got our wave. And let's, for the update, we're going to need to, what are we doing in here? We have grid.draw, wave.update, player.update. Okay. Grid.draw. And the order is important here because it draws like, you know, sequentially. So the stuff that's higher up in the list. So if we did grid.draw and then player. I can't do player.draw. I'll do player.update. If we did grid.draw and then we drew like the towers after it means it's drawing the grid first and then the towers on top. If you did the other way around, then you would just see the grid because the grid covers the entire screen. It would cover everything else below it. So make sure you have the order correct here. Grid, and then we have the wave in between here. And then player, and then our tower. So we'll make our tower again. Just copy that. And under temp variables, let's make a tower, cannon, tower. And then in here, I'll say tower equals, I could probably just paste what I just copied there. And get rid of this tower cannon in front because we already have the variable named. So tower equals new tower cannon, blah, 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 blah. And we'll update it. Tower dot update. I believe that's what we're doing, right? Yeah. Okay, so now in our boot class, we can get rid of pretty much all of this. So if you press Control D, it'll delete the entire line. Optionally, you can just like highlight it and get rid of it. But we're gonna get rid of all these update calls. And I like to leave a little space there. We're gonna get rid of all this stuff, I believe. Yep. And get rid of the tower cannon. And we're just gonna make a game. Oops. Game. Which takes the map that we have above here. Oops. I don't know what I'm thinking there. Capital G. What's going on? Undefined for type boot. Game equals... Oh my gosh. It's going crazy. Alright. So game equals new game, and pass in the map or whatever you named this thing up here. And then our update, we're just going to call game.update. And this should work. So we pretty much cleaned up the boot class of all of this temporary junk, and now it's just doing it. It's just handling like the main, you know, framework for our game. Like when the window is open, update the clock and update the game, and then worry about our frames per second. Eventually, we're gonna replace this, as I said. So we'll get rid of this as well, and the boot class will be really streamlined. So let's see if this works. If it works, the game just won't crash. So I mean, it works. That's what we're looking for here. So yeah. Looking pretty good. The way this game class is set up is that we should be able to access directly, you know, the waves and the enemies via the waves, and the player and the tile grid. So we should be able to like pass data in between them, hopefully. Yeah, and that's it for this episode. Thanks a lot for watching, and I will see you next time.